Hi there, Ron. How are you doing?
I'm well, Finley. I'm just relaxing on the beach here.
Yeah, I see that. So I'm recording here in the home studio in Glasgow.
Yes.
And for those of you watching on the YouTube channel, you can see that Ron's enjoying himself on the beach. Great audio quality for that, if you don't mind me saying.
Yeah, well, we're going to get to audio quality and sonic stuff in today's show, but yeah, there's a special screening mechanism that you can't hear the waves, but I can. So
I like that. I like that.
a
That's very
little breeze.
clever. Heard it here first, the innovation. So listen, welcome everybody. This is our festive show, the
Yeah,
Christmas special, where Ron and Finn have kind of hijacked the show and we're doing our own guest show, if you
right,
like. So
right.
rather than inviting a brand manager onto the show with their tracks, we're going to bring three tracks each, and we were set a challenge. There's actually a listener in Australia, and
Right.
he engaged with us on. It was actually on the LinkedIn business page. It was all very modern and digital.
Oh,
And he said, "Well, that's all very well.
yeah, yeah,
What's your essence?" So what
yeah.
we're going to try and do is unpack the fresh essence. It's only fair if we ask guests to come on the show and say, right, what three rock tracks represent your brand?
Yeah.
So we're being a little bit greedy, right? It's our show, sorry,
Right,
but we're going to have three tracks each,
right. Right.
and let's take it turnabout, Ron.
Mhm,
But I'm going to put it over to you. So
mhm.
what's the track, or what's the element of the fresh essence that you want to kick off with?
The first one is uniqueness. That it's a different way of looking at things in terms of fresh with branding, and then also how one is creative with that. So it's about being different, about being innovative, about being unique, and perhaps even singular, that there is only one. So that, was my thinking, and obviously, where do you go to represent that in music? And I only thought of one thing, and it's Van Halen. And Eddie sadly recently passed away, but he was never far from my top of mind recall, and probably the same for many fans out there. But once you hear the track we're gonna play is Eruption, then I think it's almost like there's before eruption, then after eruption in terms of an experience, and all of those things don't do it the best service. These are low end words, unique, singular, different, and so on. There's also magic in there. I mean, there's just nobody, and it's coming out now. You can see the waves of compassion and recognition that sounded quite like that or played like that. A lot of people around about it imitated it and so on. But you've even got Steve Vai and guys like that saying there's just nobody like this guy. It's otherworldly, godly given talent and just complete immersion in it. So if we had some of those things, and I think that we do, I believe that we do, uh, in the sense of let's take a different lens to looking at brands. Eddie took a completely different lens to playing the guitar. One of his things was that there are no rules. Everyone else is confined by myopia or protocols or models or something. He was free of all of that, and I really feel the fresh, the way that we have done it, we've looked at all of those other things. We have awareness of all of those things, as did obviously Eddie, but then say, well, I'm going to do it this way. Yeah.
Okay, let's listen to the man now. Yeah, I tell you what, that's pretty hard to beat. And if you're right, if we could take any of those elements, I'd be pretty pleased.
Yeah.
And just for a moment, if I can add
Yeah.
something to that. Now, you know, there's a little bit of a frustration when we talk to people about branding, that we get fixated on the visuals and so on. But
Yeah.
if we quickly unpack our snowflake, so the essence is where we like to start, and that's what we're talking about today. But you know, the first thing you said was how we're unique. And that's what we love about the snowflake. So, you know, one of the simple things we know is that snowflakes are unique, right? So that gives us our fingerprint, or however you like to look at it. And there was, that is just such an iconic track. Brilliant, thanks.
Yeah, and I think, you know, it's a trailblazer. You know, you've got that pioneering aspect to it, and it's different, you know, and you see other Apple think different. I mean, I respect Apple, I like all of that, but organically, that as a track in the sonic landscape at that time and today and tomorrow, it says, hey, this is different. Pay attention to this. And it's the uniqueness again. So the idea of Frejz having a unique lens, looking at brands, and Edward Eddie had an absolutely unique, a singular approach to it, and that's where the value comes. You know, to my mind, that's we also talked in other shows. There's a lot of magic in there. You know, there's a lot of stuff that you can't account for. I know we talk about secret sauce and branding and all of this stuff, but it makes you feel different, you know. So I mean, if you know, in some way, if interacting with Frejz makes you feel good, and so and that particular track just wakes you up and says, hey, here's something.
That's brilliant. Thanks. I love that. We could just play the whole of that album, couldn't we? Let's face it.
Let's play it again.
Listen, the kind of tongue in cheek, my first track, and it makes it really easy for a DJ.
Yeah.
Because track, album, and song all the same, which is almost unique. Not entirely. Band, Bad Company, album, Bad Company, track, Bad Company. Now, you know, you could say, well, hey, surely if you're trying to represent your brand, that's not very positive. But let's listen to it. There's so much to this, and then I'm going to give you some of my thinking in behind this. You know, it's a ballad. It's of its time, sort of early mid-70s, which we obviously love. So Bad Company from the album Bad Company. So it kind of sets the scene for Bon Jovi and all of these other sort of cowboy rocks and those great atmospheric ballads that we got through the 80s. But I think these guys were there way before that.
Yeah.
But here's my take on this. Okay, so we all know that the people that we hang out with have a real influence on our personality and excuse me, and our characteristics and so on. So that's the kind of take on this here.
Yeah.
That's what I want to get down to, is the relationships. Again, you know, it's actually the sociology that is more important than the iconography.
Yeah.
So, and let's start to think about brands at a human level. So the company that we keep. So that's actually, as an individual, a consumer, the relationship that we have with the brand, and you know that works in a couple of different ways. You know, in the luxury, or maybe the very strong defining brands for these tribes around music or around lifestyle. You know, is it Adidas or Nike that you wear? Very obviously, is it Levi's or Wrangler? Okay, which define you as an individual, but then also say what group you're part of, what company you are keeping. And then I know some of the work that you've done looks at the constellation of brands. So then you've actually got this idea of the brand within company, so how they relate to one another. So, that's just to give people a bit of an idea that, deeper down in our essence, that's where we like to go into, the sociology, anthropology, actually, I prefer. So, looking at it from a fresh pair of eyes, into this society. So, so anyway, there you go. There's my first track.
Oh, it's a lot. I thought it was just a song, but that is what we do in the show, and you can use that to sort of stimulate. It's kind of like how branding works with that. It's a trigger for all of these things, and what you just did was great with all of these micro relationships and interconnections and so on, because that's really what brands are, and all the way to how the company, how we interface. We try and endeavor to work with brands and people that we would aspire to work with, so immediately the company that you keep is important. The other thing you talked about, and you've done a lot of stuff in this, is internal branding, is the mechanics between the people within the brands, because brands are essentially people. They're manifestations of thoughts and feelings that people have individually and in terms of collaborating. So the company aspect is, everything is interdependent. So the brand is only successful if you have good company, or indeed bad company. So I think it's a great one to choose. Totally get it. Totally like it. Yeah.
Good. Glad you like that, and thanks that we're in agreement as well, or good that we're in agreement.
Yeah.
Rather, listen, I'm going to go straight into your
Right.
next track. I know this is another one of your big heroes.
Oh yeah.
And just play the track. So here we go. There you go. Again, let's play the whole album. Okay? Sorry, we can't. It's the festive show. It's long, but it's not that long. But tell me about Joe.
Well, I mean, this particular song, "Life's Been Good," I mean, has always, I don't know, resonated as a word, and we talk about that in branding. So it connects and it's meaningful. It's very sophisticated, and there are many layers to it, and so that's an interesting point also. But one of the things that comes off in it is there's a humor. It's lackadaisical, it's laconic, it's cool, it's confident. But all of that confidence and coolness comes from a lot of accomplished musicianship and craft. There's a lot of underpinning that goes into what Walsh is doing. It appears easy, but I remember reading an interview with him in terms of that song. It wasn't the case that he just was inspired and wrote it. There were several independent pieces of music that he then over time collapsed together, and then it began to unfold and so on. So two things about it, like Fresh, I mean, there's a lot, although we have our particular framework, there's an awful lot of underpinning and thinking has gone into creating that, very much like the layers of Walsh's song. And I'd like to think that, that we embody some of that laconic, cool, and confidence, and also, self-parody. And it relates to the later track, that there's humor, that branding should be as well as competitive, and it's about money, and so it should be fun, it should be creative, and that's what makes it interesting. Like I've always maintained that it's more art, it's more zen, it's more magic than the other end, in terms of the motorcycle maintenance. I think you need both of them. We need, but increasingly the deep business smarts, and I think what Frejz does is it taps into those. We're getting more comfortable with it now. Those sort of softer areas out there, because I think that's how human beings actually connect with brands a lot. So some thoughts on Joe.
That was great. I love that. And I love your explanation behind that. For me, that very simple story and humor that runs through that track is great for me. But it's so strong that I can see them. It's like a movie for me. That track, as I see it all, the Maserati and all the rest of it. And we come back to another one of our kind of sound bites, the mythology rather than methodology, which you're talking about, the motorcycle maintenance. And that comes through in spades here, doesn't it?
Yeah, and you got all of that, but just as you were talking, I mean, and it's obvious to me that it's like Eddie Van Halen. You get singular guitar player. I mean, he's way up there. That riff is timeless. And then you've also got his singular vocal representation. I mean, so immediately in microset, it's Joe. And that's what you want in branding. And you're going to have a good time with it. And also what you talked about, we talked about that with Hotel California, that like a scene from a movie. Each line is a scene from a movie, and so you're co-creating, so you're more engaged. It's what they've done with fashion brand storytelling online and so on. I mean, these guys were doing it organically almost, way back when. I think it's a very interesting track, and also it's an enduring track. Sorry.
It is enduring. It feels quite timeless, doesn't it? So you could drop it into different decades, I think, and it would still work. Now, a nice little link into my next track. You spoke about, obviously there's the guitar playing and there's the voice. So this will become clearer really why this kind of works with this. This is my next track.
Yeah.
So there you go. That was Jeff Beck. She's a Woman from the Blow by Blow album. Hopefully you get that, because the thing is that Jeff Beck came. Singers came and went, but then actually he was like, well, hey, I'll just play the guitar, like the vocal, and replace that. And so that is so distinctive. There's his guitar playing, but then there was this technique, if you like, to actually use the guitar. Now. I'm going to kind of repeat the characteristic a little bit because I want, the first thing I want to say about this is the uniqueness. Right, Rocky, we listen to a lot of guitar heroes, so we can tell when it's Jeff Beck or Page or Clapton, right? Okay, but I think Jeff Beck is the most unique out of all those guys, if you like. And so the second element, which I think we've got to blow our own trumpet a little bit here, is innovation. So I know all these guys, innovated around the technology and so on, but his style, now you're a guitar player, I just appreciate it, but how he was innovative in making different noises, either from his technical playing or bringing some of the technology and effects together. And that often, that was in the kind of studio and stuff, but that's part of it. So I really love him for that. And you know what, I'm kind of going to throw in here that he was a bit of a quirky character himself. But I think that's important because it's kind of warts and all. And so again, I'm not wanting to pull out our bad characteristics, but to be a little bit different and be a little bit, that was Jeff Beck. He was like, he probably could have played in the biggest band, but he was, he made his own decisions, and he had certain kind of personality characteristics that meant that he did what he did. You know, it's absolutely awesome. It's brilliant. So,
Yeah.
are you much of a Jeff Beck fan?
Oh yeah, yeah, huge fan, and all of that, and Redeco, and what he does with the tremolo or the whammy bar, and playing again. He's the guy for that. But the latter part where you're talking about, he followed his own compass. He did what he wanted to do, and he didn't necessarily make any apologies for that. And you're quite right. So by default, well, let's lose the singer and let's start singing on guitar, and it became a thing, and it still is a thing, and there's a whole bunch of them that do that. But of course, there's no one quite like him. But I think you're quite right that it relates to being authentic. So it's not contrived, and I would like to think that Frejz is authentic. There's a truth to it, and when you join all the dots with Frejz and you look at the way we're doing it, there's an authenticity and there's a legitimacy to it. In that, if you make the jump to music, it's exactly the same thing with all of the people we're talking about, in particular with the Jeff Beck thing. You can tell it's different. You can feel it's different. Your instincts will tell you. And I mean, you can go online now and listen to a zillion pieces of guitar music. But if you came across that, you're going to stay and maybe, okay, there's something different about it, that uniqueness aspect that you're talking about. Yeah.
And that's interesting what you say, because obviously another one of our E's, which we've spoken about before, is emotion. And right, music is a very emotive. But I think if you're really getting it, you can create emotion or draw emotion out of people. So if that's kind of fundamentally in your essence, and all of these tracks we hope are doing that. But I think Jeff Beck is really a master at that.
Oh, entirely. I mean, it relates to experience also, and we've talked about that you're having. I think as we move faster and faster, we want to slow down more and more, and we want to be immersed more and more. And music still does that. And I think that the branding is really about moments and moods and experiences and emotions. And if a brand is not registering or not in any of those things, then it's not a powerful brand. It's meaningless. For it to become meaningful, it must engage you, it must resonate, and it must connect with you. I mean, music and so on organically does that, but we talked about it in other shows. But then the character, the persona, the album cover, the drawing, the piece of art, the mythology, that's all branding. It's the same thing, And I mean, the way Jeff looks with that particular hairstyle and those cut off sleeves and it's brand image. He's hanging around with Ronnie Wood. It's bad company. It's good company. It's all of the same things. He replaced Eric Clapton in the Yardbirds to great acclaim. The relationship, brand alliances, they become friends later. Page and all of the stuff we're talking about that you've mentioned earlier too. So yeah, Jeff's is a good call. Yeah.
Cool. Now you mentioned Page, and those that know me must be thinking, where's the Zeppelin track in this?
Aye.
Probably not going to upset you. Sorry, spoiler alert. But you've got another track now, and this might take us out of that kind of mid-70s era, which we seem to get trapped in too often, and take us off to the beach. Tell me, what have you got?
Well, I was listening to the radio, and a song came on, and it caught my attention, and it was Harry Styles, and and so that's a new tune, and I thought my immediate thing was it was an awful lot of fun. It wasn't too heavy, and I was very interested in that, and And sonically, it's great too. I mean, he's a good singer. It's well produced, da, da, da. And so then, and you'll see this in branding. So that's caught my attention. Okay, so so I waited to the end. It's kind of old school, and the guy, and it was a Danish radio station, and Harry Styles, blah blah blah, watermelon, sugar watermelon. And then I googled it, and then I watched the video on YouTube, and in YouTube, and so I didn't really know the guy. I'd heard the name, didn't know the guy, and so there it comes up on YouTube. This film or this video is dedicated to touching, and you and I talked about it, and I thought that's interesting. Social distancing, we can't touch, we lament, we yearn for. So it's riffing on something that is we're already thinking about. And then I watched a video, which is Harry with I don't know how many beautiful women on the beach. I mean, there's nothing to it other than Harry and these women having fun singing this song and so on. And what I suddenly got was this idea, and maybe this was just my interpretation, it reminded me, it's almost a kind of Benny Hill-esque for older listeners, where the man is chased by all of these beautiful women. There's a male fantasy at play, which was fun, but it also is a lament to the past. There was a contemporary element in it, that it was relating to something serious, but it was also saying, hey, it's important to lighten up and have fun and not take things too seriously all of the time. I understand. Yeah. But the thing that why I picked it, I like it, I still like it. Is I keep coming back to it. Frejz should be fun. It should be creative. As opposed to, I mean, we've both worked in different domains where some domains are very stressful, very serious, very mechanical, almost very protocol orientated. And in those contexts, many people don't actually perform well. So the context of Frejz is more comfortable, looser. You have fun, you're more creative, and the deep smarts, the smart stuff is there. It's like the Joe Walsh song, the heavy lifting has been done to allow us to have fun with this. So, I like the Harry Styles track for that reason. And probably the beautiful girls. So,
Let's be honest about it. Yeah, and so what you're saying is we should actually go and do more meetings on the beach, spend more time relaxing, chilling out, like Harry.
I think that's what I'm trying to tell you. Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Harry Styles, I like it, and brings us out of the 1970s.
Yeah, it was quite recent, maybe last year. So
cool.
Yeah.
However, with my next track, back to me. Thanks for that, Ron. I enjoyed that, and it's uplifting, and it's for our times right now. So that's cool.
That's great.
So here it is. I'm going to bring you a Zeppelin track now. Way back on our Lost show, the first show from the studio,
Lost show. Right.
Played a track that's been overplayed, but I wanted to say, look at it, it's iconic, Stairway to Heaven from the fourth album.
Yeah.
But I'm going a little bit more offbeat, not entirely with this. This is a track from a later album, Houses of the Holy.
Yeah.
And it's a track called Over the Hills and Far Away. Now, I hope you enjoyed that. And
sure.
the reason I wanted to play, there's so much going on in there, right? And what I'm kind of wanting to talk about is diversity, and to use a kind of technical term, positioning,
if
you like, and so it's this idea of thinking differently again, which is, I think, is different from innovation, right? So we've got freedom of thinking, and that's what I think Led Zeppelin had, like 4 amazing musicians. You know, for me, there's not a standout musician in there, right? They're, you know, they all have their moments,
Yeah.
and the most out of the spotlight is John Paul Jones, who was, you know, arguably the best musician of them all, right? But in this track, what I'm trying to bring to the table for you is that Led Zeppelin weren't a hard rock band. That there's elements of this track that it's folk music. So, you know, their influences, and Page and Planet would disappear to Wales, rural Wales, into the mountains, and you know, immerse themselves in more folky music.
Yeah.
And then they would go to North Africa, and there's
Right.
world music influences here. There's heavy elements to it, and we know Page is one of the best hard rock guitarists, but they were never constrained by that, and I don't think we are constrained by traditional thinking.
No.
So it's that freedom and fresh thinking. And for me, you know, there's lots of tracks like that in there, and that's why I love listening to Zeppelin. It can go from almost heavy metal, hard rock, back to blues, into folk music, into something really almost out of this world, not just world music. So, I know you like listening to Zeppelin too.
Oh, well, I mean, you know, roughing off what you say, you know, is Kashmir, you know, the kind of Indian, there's you know, going cross fertilization, going to different contexts to be inspired, and then pulling that in. And you know, it came up earlier with brand storytelling, you know, and way back in the last century, and we had a laugh about it. And I was at Leo Burnett, I noticed, and we talked about this, that it was history majors and English literature majors that were in the creative department. It wasn't business majors or marketing majors. I mean, branding was still becoming. Storytellers in different contexts. How do you weave? How do you tell a story? So to take from different contexts and then sort of make it your own, like you just said, from blues to folk to whatever. That's what Led Zeppelin was doing. I mean, a good idea is a good idea, and you go with the best idea in the room. And I think that you said a couple of things there. Also, that it's a real band. It's the synergies between the band, and to be fair, you know, you and I do that within Frejz. Frejz is you and I, you know, and there are other players that surround that, you know, that feed in, and that becomes, it's very much like a band. So it's, you know, a lot of companies. It's very, you know, it's skewed or tilted that you know, but it's the overall thing. And I think there's some balance to that. You know, it wasn't just about the guitar player, or just about, it was about Led Zeppelin.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good point. You know, you've touched on it a couple of times. Our slightly different, but obviously parallel paths, and that has allowed us to go off and think differently from our, you know, different experiences, and not be scared to use certain influences. So if Bonham was being influenced by jazz drummers, and John Paul Jones was being influenced by Motown bass players, then they did that. They didn't feel like they had to, we're hard rock and we've got to be hard rock. And I think that was a nice parallel to draw with ourselves, and you know, the wider team as well, that is quite diverse and come from different backgrounds.
Entirely.
Now, listen, I think we've done pretty well. I wouldn't say we've exactly played any Christmas songs in there, but hopefully it's given a longer show with up till now 6 tracks. Now, listen, there's 7 E's, and we've touched on quite a lot of them. So seven is our number. I think we've given lots of great ideas about, you know, our uniqueness and fresh thinking and all those other things that we've spoken about, innovation. So there should really be a 7th track, and you know, we've joked when we were in the studio, it's always like, have something. If when we were broadcasting live, it was like, right, just stick up the volume. So So let's play our safety track, and we're going to play out with Black Sabbath.
That's cool.